Why would a bride, just 6 hours before her Christmas wedding, look at the man she loved, as if she was afraid of him? 6:12 a.m. Christmas Eve. Madison Hale stood in the dim light of her childhood kitchen, veil crumpled in her hands, her breath shaking as she pressed her phone against her chest. And across the room, Calvin Mercer paced in slow circles, avoiding her eyes. She wasn't afraid of losing the wedding. She was afraid of losing the truth. Madison had just opened the message that shattered the morning. A bank alert showing secret withdrawals she never authorized. Her fiancé's name appeared again and again. Money gone, hidden, drained for months. And the worst part wasn't the debt. It was the silence he kept while planning to marry her. Why would Calvin hide something this big? Why now? And what was he so desperately trying to fix before standing at the altar? 6 hours until ceremony. Calvin finally stopped pacing. His palms trembled. His voice cracked. He didn't deny it. He didn't explain it. He only whispered, "I was trying to protect you." But protect her from what? Main suspect, Calvin Mercer? Madison's stomach tightened. His eyes weren't the eyes of a man caught in a mistake. They were the eyes of someone cornered by something bigger. When Jenna Whitford, Madison's sister, rushed into the house after sensing something was wrong, she froze at the sight of them. A bride trembling in her robe, and the groom staring out the window like someone expecting impact. Madison, what happened? Madison couldn't answer. Calvin wouldn't answer. And the silence between them felt like a crime scene before the sirens arrive. Just as Madison tried to steady herself, her phone buzzed again. An unknown number. She opened the message, and the words buckled her knees. Ask him who he owes. Don't marry him until he tells you the truth. She looked up at Calvin. His face drained of color. But one detail didn't add up. The Calvin was only hiding debt. Why did someone warn her like she was marrying into danger? Madison stepped back from him, her pulse hammering. Calvin? Who did you take money from? He stared at her, but the man she thought she knew wasn't standing there anymore. And the Christmas wedding they planned together had just turned into a countdown she no longer understood. The first thing Detective Nora Briggs noticed wasn't the missing groom. It was the man standing alone at the corner of the chapel lot. Dark coat, no tie, hands shaking like he'd been waiting for the moment someone finally looked his way. Unknown male. Claims he tried to warn her. When Nora approached, he didn't introduce himself. He just whispered, "She wasn't supposed to find out today." Those words froze her. She asked who he was talking about. He glanced toward the bridal suite window, Madison's room, then lowered his voice. Calvin had debts, but that's not the part that scared him. Nora kept her face steady, but her heartbeat jumped. What could be worse than the financial collapse Madison discovered hours before her wedding? The man swallowed hard, eyes full of guilt. He wasn't hiding money problems. He was hiding someone. A cold wave hit her. Someone? Who? Before Nora could ask for his name, he stepped back, looked over his shoulder, and muttered, "If he knows I'm talking, I'm done." Then he walked away. Fast. Disappearing into the holiday crowd like he'd never existed. He's not hiding debt. He's hiding a person. Nora turned toward the church door, breathing heavy. If that was true, Madison wasn't the only one in danger. Detective Nora Briggs returned to the chapel, replaying the stranger's warning like a bruise that kept throbbing. Someone. Calvin Mercer had been hiding someone, not something. Inside the bridal suite, Madison's dress still hung untouched, lace trembling slightly from the draft, as if the room itself remembered her panic. 3 hours before the wedding, Nora scanned the table scattered with makeup brushes. And one thing that didn't belong, a folded receipt from a small diner 45 miles away, time-stamped 2 nights before Christmas. Paid in cash. But the signature scribbled at the bottom wasn't Calvin's. It was a woman's name, Riley Knox, a name Madison had never mentioned, a name Nora, as a local detective, had heard once before. A missing person bulletin from last spring, a young woman who vanished after telling friends she was meeting a man she trusted. Riley Knox, missing 8 months. Nora's breath thinned. If Calvin had been meeting Riley 2 nights before his wedding, what did that mean for Madison? Or for Riley? Then Nora found something else tucked beneath the receipt. A phone number scrawled in ink, written with a shaking hand. And beside it, 3 words. Don't let her leave. Her stomach nodded. Who was her? Madison? Riley? Or someone they still didn't know existed? Nora grabbed her coat. Because one thing was now certain. This wasn't a financial secret spiraling out of control. It was a triangle. 1 woman missing, 1 bride terrified, and 1 groom whose lies connected them both. And someone out there was tightening the knot. Detective Nora Briggs left the chapel with the receipt clenched in her hand. The name Riley Knox echoing through her mind like a warning she should have heard months earlier. Outside, winter air sliced across her face. Christmas lights blinked down the street, cheerful, unaware, while Nora dialed the number scribbled beside the note. 2 hours before the wedding, the phone rang once, twice, then a woman answered, voice hoarse, like she'd been crying for days. Hello? Nora froze. That voice wasn't Riley Knox. Riley had been missing for 8 months. Ma'am, this is Detective Briggs. The number was left inside a bridal suite belonging to Madison Hale. Who am I speaking with? Silence. A shaky exhale. My name is Tessa Ward, and I've been trying to reach Calvin since last night. Nora stepped toward her car, pulse quickening. Why were you trying to reach him, Tessa? Tessa sniffed, breath trembling. Because he promised he'd help me find my sister. Nora stopped cold. Your sister? What's her name? A beat of hesitation, the kind where truth hurts more than the secret. Riley Knox. She's my sister. Nora gripped the phone tighter. Tessa continued, words spilling now. Calvin told me he knew what happened to her. He said he couldn't talk until after the wedding, but he'd finally come clean. Nora's stomach nodded. Calvin wasn't just hiding a financial collapse. He'd been holding onto a truth that tied him to a missing woman, and a promise he never planned to keep. Where are you now? Nora asked. Tessa's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. I'm parked near the chapel. I saw Madison last night. She didn't look like a bride. She looked like someone who was about to run. Nora scanned the street, searching for any lone car with its engine off. Tessa, what exactly did Calvin tell you about Riley? The reply cracked like thin ice. He said Riley didn't disappear. She was taken. A chill shot down Nora's spine. By who? Tessa inhaled sharply, breath breaking. And he said, the person who took her wasn't done yet. Nora's grip tightened. This was no longer about debt. This was a chain of secrets. 1 woman gone, another terrified, and a groom tangled in both. And now there was a 4th person in the shadows. Someone who had already taken once, and was planning to take again. The chapel doors creaked under the weight of snow and suspicion. 1 hour before the wedding, Madison hadn't moved. She sat frozen in her dress, hands clutching the fabric as if it could shield her from what she now knew. Calvin had been lying for months. Nora arrived, breath fogging in the cold air, and whispered, main suspect, Calvin Mercer. Madison's phone buzzed. A message. No name. Just a location 15 minutes away and 3 words. She's next here. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Riley Knox. Tessa Ward. Calvin's lies. The warning wasn't for the past. It was happening now. Madison stood, trembling, the veil brushing her cheek. The chapel felt smaller, suffocating, the Christmas decorations mocking the terror in her chest. Every second dragged. Every shadow in the pews felt alive. Who will get to the chapel first? Madison or the person hiding in the shadows? Nora's eyes scanned the street. The snowfall muffled sound. But one crunch, one hesitant step, told her someone was coming. Someone they hadn't anticipated. 30 minutes before the wedding. The chapel felt impossibly quiet now, but every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of the candles seemed to scream. Madison clutched her bouquet as if it were a lifeline. Nora's mind raced. Calvin Mercer wasn't just hiding money problems. He'd been hiding Riley Knox's disappearance, and now the warning was clear. Someone else was closing in. A shadow passed across the stained glass windows. Movement outside. Footsteps crunching on snow. Unknown visitor approaching. Madison's phone vibrated again. Another message, more chilling than the last. He didn't just hide money. He hid the truth. Nora pulled out her flashlight, scanning the pews, the vestibule, the steps outside. She stopped cold. There, half hidden behind the entrance, was a package. Small, wrapped, taped, untouched. Madison's hands shook violently as she opened it. Inside, Riley Knox's journal. Pages torn. Notes scratched in frantic handwriting. Desperate warnings that mirrored the terror Madison now felt. One entry stood out, underlined repeatedly. He smiles while I scream. Don't trust the groom. Not a word. Not a second. He's planning more. Nora swallowed hard. Calvin's web of lies had just become more than deception. It was a blueprint for danger, and every minute that ticked closer to the wedding could be the moment someone else vanished. Madison's eyes met Nora's. You have to stop him, she whispered. But even as Nora nodded, a sudden noise behind the altar made them both freeze. Heavy footsteps, deliberate, closing in fast. Can they reach Madison before Calvin's secret claims another victim? 10 minutes before the ceremony. The chapel doors swung open, snow swirling around the steps like a warning. Madison's breath came in shallow gasps. Every instinct screamed. This was the moment the truth had to surface, or someone else would pay the price. Calvin Mercer appeared, perfectly calm, suit crisp, smile too practiced. But his eyes betrayed the panic he couldn't hide. Nora stepped forward, journal in hand. Exposed, Calvin Mercer. Madison's hands trembled as she read aloud from Riley Knox's torn journal. The chapel seemed to shrink with every word. He smiles while I scream. Don't trust the groom. Not a word. Not a second. He's planning more. Gasps echoed. Guests froze mid-step. Snow outside turned silent. Calvin's carefully crafted lies unraveled in real time. Nora had already called the authorities. Every lie, every hidden debt, every manipulated plan was documented, now in the hands of the police. The officers arrived, stepping carefully through the chapel doors. Calvin's expression shifted from arrogance to disbelief, then to defeat. There was no escape. Every secret he'd buried, every victim he'd endangered, was now visible. Justice, delayed but relentless, had arrived. Madison exhaled, relief mixing with lingering terror. The truth was heavy, but it was theirs. The veil of lies had been lifted, and no one would be silenced again. Justice served. The truth revealed. The snow fell quietly outside, covering the chaos but not the victory. Madison stepped forward, holding her head high. Nora stayed by her side, a silent promise that the shadows would never win. For more stories that uncover the secrets hiding in plain sight, subscribe to The Veil of Secret, where every truth finds justice.